you got to throw the flag, okay?
I will.
Just go.
If need be, I will.
And you got the yellow flag anywhere, so you could just toss it?
I got a blue flag.
Because if the stories go on a little bit, they get a little involved. Like when I'm recording, you go into, detail. You got to pull me back out. Okay.
All right. I'll be mindful of that. I promise you. I'll be
back out of there.
I'll be on top of it.
But you set it up because you could read off all these connective tissue artists, and I don't know, that might be the best way to do it. You tell me.
All right. Well, we're live now, and we got some folks. Paul Quinn says, "Happy Sunday, John and Gary." Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, since we know we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about, Gary, it's so great to see you, my friend, for so many years, and to be doing this. And thank you so much for doing it. You got it.
John, you're the true gentleman in the business right there, sir. You are.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm honored, man.
I've known you for years.
Yeah. Yep. and this is something I've wanted to do for a long time. So I'm just glad we can do this. And we were just, everybody watching at home, we already got a whole bunch of folks watching. We were just saying that we could probably spend an hour or more just talking about the Moondance record. So we're going to try to cover a lot of stuff here because Gary's done so much work. But I'm going to just jump in, and the Moondance record, I've been in anticipation of this, been listening to it start to finish. The other day, we were down at our place on the vineyard, and I was cutting the grass, and I put the Moondance record on, and I played it through twice in the time it took me to mow the lawn. It took a while, but talk about a masterpiece. And I just wanted to get your thoughts and some, anecdotes on that. And the fact that you were in your early 20s when you recorded that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
there's a lot to that, John. There's a lot of screenplay information that led up to that. So,
yeah. And part of it was you meeting Van in New York, going to see him.
Yeah. I'm going to try to encapsulate everything as much as possible. So there's a lot of editing here, okay?
Yeah.
Because this could go on at least for 45 minutes. I'll bring it down to like, look, this whole thing started off, all I really wanted to do is be in one band. I'm serious. I just wanted to be in one band and let's go, guys. Let's make this happen. Let's here we go. Okay. Instead, I got 25 and I'm okay with that. I mean, but like everybody else out there, all the men and women that are doing this and playing, really it started wanting to be with one unit and let's go. And it turned into that.
Yeah.
So once that, I'm originally from upstate New York, in Buffalo, New York. And that city at the time, growing up, was just a cauldron of incredible music. So once again, to edit that down, I mean, I heard the best of everything all the time. And at a very young age, I started studying when I was 5. And it was all really studying. There was no drum kit allowed. So until I was about 9, I had to go through about 3 books and just totally rudimental. And that's how we did it then.
Yep.
But I had a chance to really absorb, all of the music that was coming at me. And it was a golden age because I heard the best of all the jazz, all the R&B, all the blues, all the beginning of rock and roll starting, I was listening to Little Richard when I was 7. Mm-hmm. So that had to make and then turn around and you're listening to Miles and you're listening to Coltrane and Dave Brubeck and you're going, and all of that is becoming part of you. So once we got up, and my opportunities to play in bands in that city was astounding. I mean, I was a junior in high school, and at the time I was in a band, and we were working 5 nights a week and going to high school, and my teacher knew it. So he arranged for me to not have to go to homeroom and just come up to the band room. I know what you're doing, so just do this. And we became music students. You know, he only had like 12 music students for the 4 years. So it was music and band and music and band and read and do and go and absorb. And what was great about it was he allowed me to reverse engineer everything I brought to him. I said, what is going on here in this? And we did that. So that was kind of that was a game changer, that I received that recording information without really knowing it. So shorten it up. Eventually our band, we put together a band through other bands, a band that was called Raven. And we put that band together and we journeyed from Buffalo, New York into New York City. And our manager at the time, his name is Marty Angelo. He made everything happen and he pulled it together. And long story short, true story. We became the house band at the Scene Club, which was during that time, 68, 69. That was where all the English bands would come over and congregate. And the owner of the club, he said, you got to listen to this guy, these tapes of this band. And happened to be a guy named Eddie Kramer, and the other guy was named Jimi Hendrix. And they told the people at CBS, you better check these guys out. That led to our album on Columbia. And we made a run at that. Long story, kind of didn't connect up, but at the same time I was in New York City, I knew about Van Morrison. Van Morrison became my, special person. I listened to what he was doing, mainly on an album called Astral Weeks. Yeah, because I listened to that album. My roadie had that album, and he said, look, I just got this from Warner Brothers. You got to check this out. And I did, and I said, oh man, this guy's, he's light years ahead of everybody. Yeah. Well, what is he? So found out he was playing at the, I'm editing here, found out he was playing in New York City in the East Village over at the Gaslight Club. And I went down and I said, oh, that's when I first met Jeff Labes, the piano player from the Moondance band. And I realized they didn't really have a drummer. So I talked to I said, do you mind if I bring my drums in tomorrow night? I'll carry them down. And can I just jump in here, please? No kidding. Okay, no money. I'm okay. Don't worry about it. Okay, I'm going to edit forward. And we started rehearsing in Van's house in Woodstock. I was on for the ride, and his manager at the time was Lou Merenstein, and he said, we're going in the studio, coming the fall, late fall, almost Christmas. And that became the beginning of Moondance. Wow. Yeah, and that's exactly how it happened. And that unit, I refer to those guys, there was an immediate chemistry, and you could hear it. John Platani on guitar, Jeff Labes, John Klingberg, Colin, and John, Jack Shore. And there was a real chemistry. And
absolutely, yeah.
And I heard it. And we went in the studio mainly with Elliot Shiner over at A&R Studios on 46th Street. And we camped out there for a few days, and Van was just let us go. And we tried everything. We were just let's take after take after, let's okay, can we do this? Hey Van, can I do this? Okay, can I? I'm there with the guy that made Astral Weeks, and I'm going, oh boy, here we go. This is like going from really a very little bit of success to, something's going to happen here. Yeah. And then we approached the tunes, and we had fun with them. I said, I got a rhythm pattern for this one, and blah, blah, blah. And, the story's about, go ahead, ask me about any one of those songs.
Yeah. So, well, we're definitely going to talk about the vibraphone part and Crazy Love. And so what I've always wondered is, so when you guys went in there, you had some ideas of the arrangements, but you were still kind of forming them in the studio. It was
actually, we actually rehearsed several times in Van's house in Woodstock.
Yep.
Almost at the same time where actual Woodstock was 60 miles down the road, because it was history. And we were doing that homework while that was going on. I thought we would have jumped on that concert and played it, but it didn't happen. And in Woodstock at that time was, everybody was up there. John Sebastian, the beginning of the band, Dylan, all of that
whole,
crew. So those rehearsals went on then, and then we wound up, things hesitated for a while. Then we started playing some shows with the Moondance band, and then we wound up later that year, end of '69, we were in the studio.
I see. So you were kind of like writing the tunes.
Yes.
And playing them and tightening them up at gigs, at shows.
Yes, and I remember when Van first played Moondance, I looked at Jeff, and Jeff was classically trained, and he was just a wonderful player. And I looked at him and I said, and I went like this, just with the bebop movement in the hand. I said, you know what, we got to do that one, except we have to keep it somewhat condensed.
Yeah.
And we reached that agreement, once we cut that. But there was only one or two takes of Moondance. And I think about 12 years ago or something like that, Warner Brothers called me to tell me that they're going to put out the anniversary of Moondance, and they used all of the outtakes.
No
and
kidding.
I was shocked. Yeah, they did that. And I was like, wow. Okay.
I have to buy that. It has all alternate versions of.
And for you, hold. That's the cymbal.
Oh, that's the cymbal. Look at that. Wow. 22?
21. See it. Can you see this?
I can see the keyhole. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little. I wasn't paying a lot of attention then. There was a little bit too much going on, and I go, "Uh-oh, I better stop." And so there it is. It's in the garage with all the rest of them.
And not to jump far ahead, but so that's not the same cymbal on like the Joe on Fly Like an Eagle.
With Miller? No, that's in the garage too. I could.
Okay.
No, that one, I've got the other one from that.
We're going to get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. But back to Moondance. Van was wonderful. He allowed us to do whatever we wanted. We'd suggest something. Yeah, hey, let's put the horns through the Leslie for Into the Mystic, and Into the Mystic was like, instant. That was him starting it, and as soon as I heard it, I was like, and I'm hearing the mix. Because the engineers during that time, they made the headphones sound like a finished recording, like you were inside the record while you were playing it.
Wow.
It wasn't just some random headphone mix. It was actually, they would treat it like, oh, add some echo and whatever the special effect was, we're hearing. I'm going, oh, we're really doing what I'm really hearing for real. Okay, here we go. So that helped out. And then we would add, if we did some percussion overdubs or stuff like that. I invented a couple of the drum beats and skip beats and stuff like that. We did a song called Glad Tidings from New York. And then we got around to doing Crazy Love. And, we talked about Crazy Love. And I said, wow, this is just Van Morrison soul music. This is just, he's using his falsetto. Listen to this thing. We got to give this a treatment. So after we cut the track, and I used real tight brushes, and we brought the mics down and brought the mics in, and I said, this is going to be really soft. I told Elliot, bring them down. I'm going to play really soft. I'm not going to hit hard, but just grab that motion. Make sure you grab that motion. As soon as we finished it, being in New York City, I realized, I saw over in, that day in the studio, the big golden set of Musser vibraphones that was delivered from SIR. They did not take them back, and they were still there. And I was like going, okay, here we go. Because I've been playing vibraphones since I was 12 years old. And just
I was going to say, okay,
just for orchestration, not that. And I said, Van, can I put that on he said, oh, sure, go ahead. I'm going to go read some bass. So I told Elliot, I said, Elliot, mic it real close, and I'm going to do a slow rotation. And I went to do that, and I realized, oh, there are no mallets. Cute. And I was almost defeated. I said, hold on a minute. Is there a maintenance room or something? He said, yeah, check it out. So I found Craftsman screwdrivers at that time, and they had rubber handles on them, right? Couldn't find 4 to work with 4. So I've had 3.
Oh,
So that part was played with screwdrivers.
unbelievable story.
And it came out beautiful. So then I wound up mixing. I stayed behind. Everybody went back up to Woodstock, and I said, I want to stay here. I want to sleep in the studio. Elliot, can I sleep in the studio? Sure, don't tell anybody. I'm going to stay here. We're going to start mixing in a day. Okay, I want to stay. I'm going to stay in Manhattan. And we did. And I admitted to Elliot, I said, every time you turned around and we were mixing Moondance, I kept kicking the vibraphones up. So that's why when you put the cut on, as soon as you hear Van say those first 3 words and the vibraphones hit, that's because they were knocked up. Each time we did a mix take, I said, now they're where they should be. And
good on you, Gary.
That's why it sounds like it did, because the vibraphone is always mistreated, or never used as a major instrument to capture the flow. And I pushed it up.
And not to take anything, Van's vocals are so beautiful in that song, but the vibraphone part that you play, the way it fills the whole thing, it's
slow
gorgeous.
rotation. My sound is a slow rotation, and I use very soft mallets, the gray Musser mallets, and I usually use 4. Yeah. But I purposely use that because now one more thing about Van Morrison and all that stuff, those are real vocal takes. He never overdubbed a lead vocal. Wow. That is it. So whatever you're hearing on any of those, that's what you got.
That's it. It's like he might do a few takes, but it's all
they didn't
real.
Do a compilation and filling up the track and then picking the best phrase from each one, and then none of that. That was just that was like real stuff. There was no manipulation. You couldn't manipulate that. Just but there was no manipulation capabilities at that time.
I think what I love so much about the record is, besides the cuts, I mean, the songs are timeless, but it sounds like a live recording in terms of everybody being in the room at the same time. And they were. We were. The horns were there. Everybody was playing at the same time. John Platania played that beautiful guitar stuff. And one other thing I didn't agree with at the time, we had cut one more great song that should have been in that package. And it was a song called I Shall Sing. And it had the same ambiance of those weeks of recording. Yeah. And for some reason, somebody at Warner Brothers, they said, no, let's leave this one off the package. So Artie Garfunkel comes along and does an album called Angel Clare and does that song, our exact arrangement. And I went, they should hear ours. Yeah. I wanted that to be included in the Moondance package, but there you go. Maybe in I guess this is the 50th anniversary, I think, this year, right? It came out in 70. Yeah. Yeah.
To go from, sort of not really, I don't want to say the band was a negative, but to go from that rating to jump into a record like that was like, what just happened? How did that come up? But, in my heart, working with Van during those years was I heard him and I said, no, I got to work with this guy. I have to work with this guy. There's something there. Wow. I got to be part of that. I heard
you did. And I know you and I have talked about this a million times, but I mean, just talk about a legacy, talk about just, if you'd only played on that one record, you'd go down in history as one of the greatest drummers of all time, just on that record alone. But then all this other stuff.
Well, after that, we did Tupelo Honey, and then we did St. Dominic's Preview, and I did 3 more with him. I did Hard Knows the Highway and Philosopher's Stone and On the Road. There were six albums I did with them, and then we did a little single called Cleaning Windows. I wanted to do more, but then he moved back to Ireland and England, and everybody just, you know how it happens. Everybody just flies.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say a shameless plug. My band plays Into the Mystic, and it's one of the most enjoyable songs. I try to channel you when I play it, of course, with
I,
no
a,
real
few,
success.
a few years back, I spoke to John Platania. John's from Poughkeepsie, and he's just a wonderful guy and player. And we were talking about stuff with Van, and Van did some other concerts, years back. And I said, gee, John, if Van went out and said, Van Morrison and the Moondance Band, he could buy Ireland, the entire country, if he would do that, if he, with the original guys from that unit. I thought that would be a stellar concert to have the guys be there and pull off in sequence the whole record.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be, but to no avail. That's the way it goes.
Well, Gary,
Yes.
just before, you got a question from Anthony Kirsina, and he's asking if there are 3 books that you worked on when you were coming up that you might recommend, or three drum books that.
This is ironic. Out in my second studio out in the garage out there, I kept also all the books. They're there with all the notes in them. Don't ask how this happened. It just happened. Yes, I should go get them. No, we can't do that. One by Jim Chapin. I studied with Jim Chapin. I took about 3 lessons with Jim Chapin in New York City.
Wow. Okay.
And he put out a book.
Yeah.
And then the Goldenberg book. And then one called Rolling in Rhythm. They're out there. And
what about like Stick Control? You must.
Oh, Stick Control. Yes, absolutely.
Stick Control,
yeah. I went through Stick Control when I was 11.
Yeah. I was going to say, and that, Yeah.
I mean, if we talk about training and studying and all of that stuff, what I would do with that is because I read since age of 5 and a half, 6 years old, and read and was in the grammar school orchestra and then all 4 years of high school, which was the high school years were golden because of my teacher. Was my first teacher playing rudiments, and we were just exploring every piece of music that was there. Every question was answered, and along with the rudimental drumming, I attacked the set in a different way because there wasn't one category of music that dominated. I just found, when you're very young and you're hanging out with guys in the neighborhood and everybody's got their bicycles and you're all just, killing each other and doing what we did then, which was
what you do.
Fairly dangerous. I don't know how I came out of this. What happens in those years is that, you separate yourself a little bit from the pack because thank God I had a 9 transistor GE radio with all of the channels marked, and it was strapped to my bike. So most of the times the guys would see me missing. I'd hear something and I'd go, shoot home, jump on the drums that were set up in one corner of the living room, driving everybody crazy because and playing along with the stuff. Now, one more thing that I have to make sure everybody understands. We did not have the technology in those years to really, I mean, you can go to Guitar Center today and Dad could spend a couple grand and you're set up. You're ready. Hey, you're ready to go. Boom. On my record player, there wasn't even a jack to plug in headphones. This did not exist. And, it wasn't that it was living in the Civil War, but the technology just was not, we didn't have that Guitar Center. We didn't have that stuff. So I had to invent. So I built 2 stands in wood so I could take the 2 speakers that would unhook and slam them against me, right? And get in between them and play along with the records. And believe me, that was wonderful to be able to do that. It was
early headphones. Yeah.
That's all I did. Well, we didn't have the tech. There was no.
Sure.
All we needed was a jack. Then you think they could at least give us that, but
I know.
it didn't happen. Okay.
So I got a question here from my friend Tim Jackson here in Boston. asking if you've read Ryan Walsh's book, Astral Weeks. Great Boston history, went to a reading, met his drummer, Joe Bebo. I don't know. He's asking if you know Joe Bebo. I don't know.
Well, I know all about Astral Week because I discussed Astral Weeks with Van, and Van's manager at the time was Lou Merenstein, and I got the exact story about Astral Weeks. And basically, to sum up Astral Weeks, that was basically kind of what we call a Frankenstein record. Those cuts, Van cut by himself, right? Then Lou Merenstein, they said, look, we're going to sweeten this stuff up. And that's what they did. And I believe the concert master on that stuff was a man named David Applebaum, I believe. And the great jazz bass player, I think it was Leroy Vinegar. He was the star of that album. And if you listen to some of those cuts, you go, whoa. I mean, they were just playing, he was playing so free. And you go, how did they pull that off? Well, Van had cut that prior, and then they just went up to it and sweetened it underneath. And I think just did a brilliant job in pulling that off. I mean, that was excellent work for me. Now that works for me. It may not work for the next person, but you know, this whole industry is but what connects with you and other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
and there's a question here, Gary. Did you ever study with Louis Marino?
I did not study with Lou Marino. Lou Marino is a wonderful jazz drummer from my hometown in Buffalo, New York. My teachers were mainly Sam Skamaka, who taught me from the ripe old age of 6 years old. He was then my high school teacher for 4 years, pulled off magic for me. And then I studied with Jack Schilling. That was transitional. And then I studied with John Rowland from the Buffalo Philharmonic and George Diana from the Buffalo Philharmonic.
Wow, man.
I made a feeble attempt at becoming a college student for 2 years. A feeble attempt. Now, let me just describe it quickly to you. The years were 67 and 68, and the music world was on fire. Yeah. And there was no way after 2 years I was going to sit still. John, there was no way you could sit still. I mean, you remember the four guys from Liverpool? Oh, well, they were still out there playing their music.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sitting there. I want to be in Chicago, and I want to be over here in New York, and I want to be in LA and San Francisco, and I want to be in London. I want to be everywhere in the same day. So there was no way I was going to sit still any further. I just had to get on the train, and that's what I did. Yeah. I got on the train. I took a big chance. I don't recommend that to anybody because it may not work out that way. Some people can pull it off, but it was magic stuff. It was a magic time, and it was just no way I was going to sit still.
And, you know, I'll say too, that you were well equipped to do it, you know, and I'm not saying other people aren't, but with all the training you had, and the, you know, it's obvious why you were successful because, you know, you could go in, you could read, somebody could hand you a chart, you could play it, you could play percussion, you had all this training, and it was at a time when the music was just so, you know, prevalent and robust. It was such a robust scene. You know?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's look at the era of time we were in. You know, sometimes you're born at the right time and the right. I mean, my influences were really all of it. I got to see, and there was one more world of music that not many people really know about that I had in Buffalo, New York, because for some reason, the world of the Hammond B3 organ was prevalent in my city. So Jimmy Smith and Jack McDuff and Jimmy McGriff and all the great B3 Hammond B3 players.
Yeah, organ.
That music, I mean, I went to see Jimmy Smith and it was Donald Bailey on drums and it was Kenny Burrell and it was like, oh, I'm watching that world of music along with all of the other worlds. And I never dismissed any one world, but I never became a martyr for one category of music. I got in trouble one day with some of my jazz friends. and I'll tell you about it. And it was, I didn't realize it, but I said, well, look, guys, uh, you know, John Coltrane and Miles and Dave Brubeck and Buddy Holly and all these, and everybody. I started rattling off everybody, and they were like, "What?" I said, "They're the same people to me," and that didn't go over well.
Yeah.
And, because at that time jazz was to be elevated a little bit further up, and I'm not going to talk about the rest of my differences with that one, but I said, there's something going on over there in that other world. And by the time we got to 1968, it was obvious that those portals of what we refer to as just being rock and roll, it's all kinds of stuff. But that was the world of experimentation. That's where I said, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I got to head there, because I can then pull off all of this, what I'm hearing, and maybe be able to use it.
You had a plan. No.
Invent.
Yeah.
Read. There are guys that are just really equipped to do that and love it, and I respect all of it. You want to be a Philharmonic player, but once that other world opened up to me, I said, I think I'm going to be doing better with a blank canvas than being able to read, which I can do. But I'd rather have the blank canvas. Now,
Yeah.
A lot of people that may not be good for.
Right.
It was good for me. That's
Yeah.
where I stay.
Absolutely. And before I forget to, I had written down a question, something I can't believe I never asked you.
Okay.
What drum set what kind of drums did you play? Did you record Moondance with? What was the kit? Was it a studio kit, or was it your personal kit?
Yeah.
It was your kit.
Well, that's why now I'm with the people at DW and John Good and everybody, because they knew I was on an early Camco kit.
That's right. Okay.
Early Camco kit with the round lugs, and the history of DW is they took over Camco, and they saw me. I think John Good saw me on. He goes, "Oh, you're at Van Raven. You're at the Fillmore East, and that's a camp." I said, "Yeah." I said, "They look pretty cool," and I was able to grab a kit like that and put a kit together. But they know my recording stories, because my recording kits were just completely just irrational sets of stuff.
Hybrids and let's jump ahead to that. If we can jump ahead to, I know there was stuff in between, but maybe we could jump ahead to Fly Like an Eagle, for example. The drums that you used.
The Miller era. With
Miller era.
Uncle Stevie. It was well, actually, all these periods of time, they actually flowed in between each other. Okay, one didn't stop and the other one started. They kind of everything just kind of kept, moving on that ocean like that. And I had originally, during my work with Van, and then when Van had moved out to San Francisco, and I was out there in San Francisco with him, I stayed at his house, and once Moondance hit and Tupelo Honey hit, and that was like the key to the city. I didn't know what those things were going to do. I mean, in the beginning, I'm not sure Moondance was that well received. There was no category for it.
Yeah,
and
I guess so.
Perfect. And I love that. It was like, okay, we're breaking the rules, I guess, but there you go. I got a call up from a wonderful producer, Bruce Botnick, and a great jazz piano player named Ben Sidran. And they said, look, we want you to come in at Capitol Tower and track for Steve Miller Band. And I already knew the Steve Miller Band from his early San Francisco groups. And they had Living in the USA and Space Cowboy and, hey, somebody throw me a cheeseburger. They had, and I was a fan. I was going, and then I did a little research on Steve, and I realized this guy really plays his guitar, and he was part of the Chicago scene because he knows his blues.
Yeah.
I mean, he was playing his blues, and he was going after the same gigs in Chicago that were occupied by Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters. Now that's some competition. And he was there. So I said, okay, this guy's got blues woven into him and R&B. I'm going to like this because the rock and roll, because of that, is going to come out different.
Yeah,
Just because you have that ingredient woven into you, you're going to play your rock and roll different. And I'm a big believer in that. I've always done that. So I went in and I played for Steve on an album called Journey from Eden, we call The Beginning. It was his transitional time from the San Francisco stuff to his next move. And it was quite a day, and it was my first record with Steve. And then everybody just parted ways for a while, and I was doing all kinds of work in Los Angeles at the time. All of a sudden, it just was recording. It was just going and going and going. And, you know, I can't tell you how much that took over. You know, I was in and out of the studios, and I would pass in the hallway with Keltner and Jimmy Gordon, and we'd wave and make fun of each other and be nice to each other. You gonna learn how to hold them sticks? Stuff like that. Yeah. And there was so much of that going on that, you know, eventually, everybody then formed back together again. So you get a call up later on, and I did. There was just tons of stuff going on in LA, you know, that I was on board. I worked with Paul Williams a lot with Paul. They called me in at A&M Records, and I did all of Paul's work. And then I did a lot of work at A&M Records. We were kind of like staff musicians for a while over there. And there was a lot going on. I was on tour with Joe Walsh and Barnstorm and doing tours with people like that. And then all of a sudden, I get a call up, and it's Steve. And he said, look, I want you to be on board where I'm going to go after something. I'm really, really going to do some homework. And I want you and Lonnie Turner to come up to my house up in Novato. And here's the plan. That began all of the stuff for Fly Like an Eagle and Book of Dreams, which had all the hits on it, because all that stuff was made in a very short period of time.
Yeah,
and
it was
that
all
was
one.
Look, I told you you're going to have to throw the flag, because if I start talking about this stuff, you're going to have to go stop.
All right.
No, there's a lot of info here. And
I want to hear about it.
And there's a lot of info, but in our meeting with Steve, he said, look, things are beginning to happen. I cut this song called The Joker. And I said, yeah, I know. I've been hearing it. I said, I'm really glad for you. He goes, but I want to make these albums that really do a diverse set of music. We're going to go from this to this, and I want to invent. And so I said, okay, what are we going to do? He goes, let's come up to the house and talk about it. We're going to go to CBS Studios on Folsom Street in San Francisco. And can you stay here for as long as it takes? I said, that's all I want to hear. Let's go. Here we go. I said, all right, here we go. Now I got something for you, and I didn't tell you about this. You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
I didn't tell you about this. All right?
Okay.
This is the original tape of all of that work.
Oh my gosh.
And it was at night when we would come home. They gave us these. These are called cassette tapes. Remember?
They were kind of new at the time, probably. Well, maybe not so new, but.
This is all the original takes right here. I've already transferred it digitally, but that's what we used to bring home. And I stayed at Steve's house, and we worked so hard on this stuff. Let me just put this down. We worked.
Yeah. Wow.
And I said to Steve, I said, look, can I come up with some stuff here? He said, yeah, you have free reign. That's why you're here. Go. What do you hear? What do you think? And me and Steve and Lonnie would really discuss. Now, those albums with the majority of those hits, the Steve Miller Band was really a trio. That was it. Yeah. Not a lot of people know that. They think of a band, there's 4 or 5 guys, but it was just Steve and me and Lonnie. And we basically really did engineer ourselves at the same time. So we were kind of doing it all. And as we were running these songs down, I would say to Steve, can I put an intro on this one? And he always said yes. I mean, Steve in those years was just completely ready for all of it to happen. Yes, come on, what do you got? Let's go. Come on, let's go.
Yeah,
Let's go. I mean, that's a special time. Sometimes you get in the studio with people and it's a little uptighter. Then they already have a preconception of where this thing should go.
Yeah.
But
talk
Steve
about intros too.
Yeah,
man.
he let me go. And prior to that, when I worked with Ben Sidran, the keyboard player who introduced me to Steve, and prior to that, a few years prior to that, we did an album for Paul Pina. Paul Pina is the guy that wrote Jet Airliner. And we did this album in Boston, and it was quite a record. Paul Pina was like, he's no longer with us, but Paul was just a soulful black kid, and he was blind, and he was just terrific. So that was one of the songs that Ben and me brought to Steve, and then we eventually did that. And all of a sudden, this cauldron of activity, we were like, oh, it started to boil over. He goes, can you stay here for another 2 weeks? How about another month? Go, let's go. I'm free. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's
the music was, was coming out.
Keep going. And it was Steve with his guitar and his amp and a mic and Lonnie on bass and me on drums. And there was only one photograph of all those recording sessions that would have ever taken. And it's me on my kit that I actually used for Eagle.
Yeah.
And all those cuts, all the hits, everything that came out of there, there was only one that we cut as a quartet. And that was with wonderful once again, here we go back to my B3 training and knowing the B3 and all of that B3 music. And I talk of that world because not a lot of areas had that world of the B3. And he said, well, Waheem Young is in town. He's going to be auditioning for Santana and blah, blah, blah. He said, I'm going to bring Waheem Young in for one song. And he said, I've been trying to cut this song forever, and I can't get it. Not the way I'm hearing. And that was Eagle. And we did Fly Like an Eagle. We did 3 takes, and we used take 2 and take 3. So everything you hear is all played for real. And what happened was we had to jump to take 3. Luckily, I actually kept the same tempo. Oh, bringing up tempos. All of these recordings, there are no clicks.
Okay, that was my
no tricks,
question.
no clicks, no generation of computer stuff that didn't exist. So this is just count. Here we go. This is right. This is right. This is the right tempo. Getting the tempos right is so important, so the song can breathe. That's very important. Getting those tempos right and then holding those tempos. So we did it, and Waheem came in, and all of that playing is all that B3 school of playing. And during take 2, one of the microphones began to depress, and it fatigued. Crack, boom, okay, here we go again. And at that point we had to cut. It was, now today you could just go in it and just digitally move it or remove it and then come back in. But so that's how that came to be, because he didn't really get a track on that in the prior years, because that original guitar riff came from an old song which was called My Dark Hour, My Darkest Hour. And I talked to Steve we talked about all this stuff, and we'd get up in the morning, we'd have breakfast, and Steve, and we were talking about everything, every song, and we went over it and over it. And he said, I just can't, I don't have the track yet. I said, well, really, it's an R&B feel. It's really an R&B kind of funk flow underneath. And if we could, I know, I don't know what Capitol Records is going to think, but that's the way it should feel. So we should just go ahead with it. And that's what we did. And then Steve invented all of the space sounds, all of the, all the stuff that was woven into it.
Yeah.
And he invented that, just him and his guitar and the original Echoplex, the gray Echoplex.
Yep.
And you could just move it, and that's how we did it.
Wow.
Yeah. No computers. There was no tricks. The only trick is what we could manufacture, right then and there. But that was just the one cut. Those 2 albums allowed us to tour for 12 years. And we did all of those stadium shows. That's when, I go back and I think about it and I go, here's a world that the Beatles invented and they didn't even have a chance to use it.
I know. Yeah.
Think about it.
I
mean,
know,
if you
you're
really
right.
think of, and you think of the time continuum in what the immensity of the work that they did that made, I mean, let's face it, those guys and everything that came out of it, thank God everybody came along. All the bands.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Made a lot of work for everybody, and it raised, that generation was there ready to party and ready to concert. So it became that era of football. Well, let's move it into a football stadium.
Exactly. And you're right. They did a handful of shows and then they were done with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that went on for quite a few years. And it's amazing to think that the sound systems that we had with the Steve Miller Band was from Shilko out of Texas, and it was like $1.5 million worth of equipment. I mean, the Beatles played Shea Stadium, and their voices came through the speakers that were on the posts.
Unbelievable.
And you think about that, and you go, "What?
Yeah.
Really? Did that really happen?" I mean,
no stage monitors.
No monitors. Ringo moved his own drums, and I'm going, man, that's talent.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I know. It's amazing.
Let's face it. They came along they all came along at the right time, because that was like, thank you for making it. And then all of that music came out of that. Everything that, all great rock and roll, Sly and the Family Stone. That was one of my favorite drummers, because I loved Eric playing Sly's band, because I related that to that music quite a bit, because it just, some of that. I was at CBS Records with the Raven Band, and I knew Don Palouse, and he played me their demo. And he said, well, here's the band. I said, that's not a demo. That's not a demo. It can't be a demo. And that was the first album.
Wow.
And I'm going, that's not a demo, man. No way. That's a record.
So I want to jump back to Fly Like an Eagle, because
throw the flag. You should have thrown the flag.
No, this is great, Gary. Right. I can't. There's too much good stuff, man. Okay. Drum. A couple of people have talked about intros here. John Rogers, the intros to Take the Money and Run, Swingtown. How do they come about? And we want to talk about that, but I just have to say, there's some of the greatest. I was 15 years old in 1976 when Fly Like an Eagle came out. And I played April of 1976. I played that record nonstop, like through the rest of that year, trying to learn those fills. And I'll just say, years later, my band started writing original songs, and I stole so many of your licks. We did this song called Pay Your Way in Gold, and I was playing and the guys in the band were loving it. And I had to cop to it and say, well, that guy that plays with Steve Miller.
Okay, for you. Okay.
Yeah.
I said I was going to do something for you. Hold.
You always do things for me.
Stage.
Okay.
Right, left. Okay, hang on.
Here it is.
You mean this guy?
Look at that. That is the cymbal. And that's what it looked like when you recorded with it, right? I mean, it's pretty much.
Pretty cute, huh? It's dangerous. You can use it for a saw blade.
You could. And looking at it, I think it might be an actual pang, not a swish. I think it, by the edges, they look.
Whatever was on it, I know it's a Zildjian. As a matter of fact, I drilled it over here to stop. Anyway, this is Keep On Rocking Me. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you about Keep On Rocking Me. When I had that cymbal up, we did have an assistant engineer in with us, because Mike Fasaro, good guy. And me and Mike used to go at each other a little bit, friendly. And Mike, when we started playing that and we had that intro, Mike said, you got to get rid of that cymbal. And I said, Mike, you've just really started me off on the wrong foot. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get a mic, and we're going to put a mic on that cymbal, and you're going to turn it up. He said, okay. I said, please. let's make sure we hear it, okay? Because I never liked some of the stereo mixes that they did with those big overheads way up there. I said, and those two overheads that are 6 feet up there, we're not cutting a jazz album. You're going to bring those two overheads down, and we're going to pick the cymbal up so you can really, really hear it, because we're cutting something different. This is a different cake mix, okay?
Yeah.
So here we go.
Sounds, everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, if that record does something, you're going to have to buy me dinner for the next year. Well, I let him off the hook because it went to #1. I let him, and I would just look at him, and we'd come into the room, and I'd just look at him, and I'd start smiling, and he goes, okay. I said, I'll have the fish and chips, please, with the salad. All right, Mike, let's go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and cutting it. So, okay, the reason why we came up with that song is really on the concerts. We realized, look, we just need a straight ahead eighth note rock and roll song, just straight ahead, just And out of necessity came. Well, keep on. I said, well, it goes back to the earliest days of rock and roll. Let's mention some cities, or mention this, or mention that, and then when we play there, it'll be like and it worked, and it was just it was needed. It was needed in the concerts. We didn't have a straight ahead eighth note rock and roll song.
Yeah, but you know what, Gary, you're being too humble, because there's a lot more going on with that song.
Yeah,
what you play, there, all those accents that you're playing.
Take the money and run. Take the money and run was that was a feat. That was really me and Lonnie Turner conferred on that. I said, Lonnie, you have to stand right near me. And when we're going to go to those accents, because we're not reading music, we could chart it out, but please, let's not stick our head in the paper, because it's not going to sound right. Let's just watch each other. I'll throw up a number. So if we're going to do 2 hits, and as I'm playing, I could throw up 1 or I could throw up 2, and we could go to those hits, so we could play them very smoothly. And then as we were doing this, I said, Steve, can I put an intro on this? He said, sure. Yeah, go ahead. And I did one, and I would go, then I stopped. I said, no, okay, no. Okay, let me do another one. I said, if I don't stop, please keep going. And we finally got to the one that was the hit that became, it did what it did, and we kept going. And every one of those hits, Lonnie was on me like this, and I was on Lonnie. It was just the 3 of us in there, and he was leaning over the baffle, and I said, watch, let's stay on it. And I go, 1, 2, 1, 2, and that's how we pulled that song off.
Were all the intros takes, was the intro pretty much the same or pretty close each time? Except
Swingtown. Now Swingtown, I'll tell you the truth on Swingtown. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get hell for this one. Okay, here we go. Ready? Oh, here we go. All right. The pattern on Swingtown, when I was going to the University of Buffalo, my feeble attempt at the college student stuff, remember that? Okay. I was in marching band for those 2 years, actually in marching band. I said, okay, this is good. 14-piece, and I was ahead of the drum section. And I brought to my musical director, I said, look, I got a cadence. Can we play this instead of that? And he said, no, we got to stay with the syllabus, and we have to do this. I go, come on, let me try it. Everybody's here. Let me try it. I have a film of that they wouldn't play it. So I put it away, and that was Swingtown. So I boiled it down to me playing the bass drum part. I couldn't do the tom part. So I boiled it down to that. Yep. Now, what happened in the studio was we were doing that song, and that didn't exist. There was no rhythm pattern on that song. So once again, it became, well, do I say anything? Because I'm really composing this tune. But since I was the freshman in the band, I had to kind of be a good boy and be quiet. But actually, if you think about it, it really became like a Ravel's bolero, because the rhythm pattern was integral to the writing of the song. It is now associated with that song. But in the beginning, that didn't exist. So when Steve left the room, he had to talk to somebody at Capitol Records. I leaned into Lonnie. I said, this song is going nowhere. This song needs to sound like it's coming from somewhere, like it's coming from somewhere, because it's going, we're not doing anything. So I said, Lonnie, play a bass line to this. I'm going to start kicking this off. It's the same tempo. So I started playing that beat and I condensed it down. And then Lonnie added doom, 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 doom. Steve comes running in, jumps on the microphone, click through our headphones. He said, don't stop. He goes, okay, keep going. Okay, now stop, roll, start. And that's how we did it when we faded up. It was just me.
Yeah.
So we faded it up from that. But once again, it was my knowledge. To me, it's always in my assessments of every player and every band and whatever they're doing, it's not personal, but it's composition. Yeah. Composition in my book always comes first, not anything else. You know, what is it that we're playing? That's really important. And that's what I said, this song's got to come from somewhere. And that's how that was invented. So then the marching band at University of Buffalo, I said, well, you missed that one, guys. So we're going to use it on this record. But it's really a marching cadence. That's where it came from.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. I love that groove. And my friend Tim Jackson's pointing out, I was going to ask you this question. I don't know if you've heard the isolated drum track to Fly Like an Eagle, the song that it's like on YouTube or someplace where there's somebody said somebody took that apart. Now, how do they do that? I mean, I'm working Pro Tools 10, 11, and 12, and I'm going, now did they get a hold of the master? I don't know.
Or is there something that can strip it down?
I'll text you the link to it because I've heard it, and it's definitely you. It's not somebody copying it, and it's unbelievable when you hear what you play in the isolated track. It has everybody else, you might not feel this way, but all of us humans have a much greater appreciation than we already have for that song because it's unbelievable when you hear it.
Somebody said that they heard it and they said that they were discussing the part where we clipped it together, and I said, well, gee, all they had to do is call me and ask me, and I would tell them, yeah, this is what happened, and you could have the accuracy of the story. But just let me say something. Because of what happened in my hometown and being able to play 5 nights a week and an afternoon, to be doing that amount of playing constantly at a young age, there is no substitute for that. So once you get into the studio, being in the studio is like medical training. You're hearing yourself back and you're improving and you're going, okay, and you do that enough. Because that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to make records. I didn't want to be the greatest this or that. I want to be in this record. I want to be in that amount of information. So that amount of playing that you do live, that's where it took its toll, because you were able to keep, and it still worked today. It still works in every record I touch today. You don't have to run the click. Yeah. When I worked with Springsteen, same thing happened. You know, he just laid his guitars down and that was the big surprise.
We're going to talk about that in a second. I just want to give a comment from my friend Aaron Comas, who plays with the band The Spin Doctors. Very fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I like those guys, man.
Yeah. He's a fine drummer. And he said, hey guys, absolutely love Gary's playing. What a feel. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you, because they made their appearance. And I said, oh, that's really cool and very precise. And
he's a great drummer.
You know, that was a different era of time, as we know, each era that we go through. And I'm going, wow, I wanted more.
I know. But they came along and it was a whole different sound. And
it was, yes, it was.
Aaron's playing and
That's one thing I wanted to say about, you know, rock and roll. I mean, what we call rock and roll, there's no real one definition for it anymore. And if you trace your history and you go back, you're talking almost 70 years of every decade of what we call rock and roll becoming a different animal. It's a completely different animal from decade to decade, and whatever one band does to handle that in whatever spin they give that, and then whatever spin the next band gives it, you know, I have my favorite, but I judge my stuff purely on a compositional level first, not anybody's playing, because everybody can handle the situation the way they want to. I'm not a judge of that, but it's always a compositional level. Then I can go in there and rack and go, I don't like where the bridge went. No. But when it's right, oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Gary, can we talk just for a second about, you mentioned that picture. I've seen that picture of your drum set from Fly Like an Eagle, from those records. But can we talk about it? It was a hybrid kit of like concert toms or single-headed toms, or a couple anyway, right?
Yes, a couple single-headed toms and a couple double-headed toms, and it was one of everything thrown in, and I
like
just
Pearl,
went for
Ludwig.
Pearl and old Ludwig. It wasn't even a good Ludwig. It was one of the B class Ludwig. I said, I don't care. I got it to tune up. Oh, once again, and there was a song on that with Steve. It was called Wild Mountain Honey, and it was what we called, Steve was very famous. We'd get together and then we'd start making fun of ourselves.
Sounds like there's tabla or something in it.
Well, yeah, what we did was he goes, Mallaber, we need a Swami Daddy-O song, one of those FM, real hippie FM tunes, man. I said, okay. I said, well, why don't we go into that kind of Ravi Shankar area, but come up with something that's our own. Let's not use tablas or, the stereotypical stuff. Let's invent it from. So, we based today with Pro Tools, you could do that easy, but we did that. I did 12 overdubs and started with just holding it steady. And then Steve started with the electric sitar, and I tuned. Those were the little Ludwig and little Pearl and little Ludwig, no heads on the bottom, and I tuned them to his sitar.
I see.
So that it would be in the same. Spent about an hour getting it right, and then I played those with vibraphone mallets, because I'm always playing that stuff with vibraphone mallets. So
give it that softer sound.
Yes.
Yep.
So we did hat and this, and then we did the crystal and the glass and this and that, and then I did the tom-toms, and we did about 12 overdubs, and that was huge. They played
beautiful song. Yeah.
They played and I love that kind of drumming because it was so away from the kit. It was totally orchestral. And I said, oh, okay, let's see what happens with this. And they played every cut on that record.
Oh yeah.
Boy, what
it's a great, I don't think it was released as a single. An album cut is The Stake. And every time I hear that song, I go, man, what a great, like, just, ballsy, bluesy.
Yeah, and we cut that stuff. Most all of that was cut as a trio.
Yeah.
That's all you had to go with. You didn't have all of the flavors there, But cutting as a trio, to me and to all the guys is. I talked to Jimmy Keltner about this years ago. I haven't talked to Jimmy in a long time, and we agreed, just give me a good sounding kit and a bass player that stays in the bass register, and a rhythm guitar player. Let me say that again. A rhythm guitar player who really loves playing rhythm, and we can cut anything.
Mm-hmm.
Those three pieces. Now, I left out the keyboard because the keyboard, once you add another instrument, that has to be the right part and the right sound executed in the right manner. So each time, it becomes a math problem. But with three, if you get those three to work, you're on your way. I've seen 99% of the time in all the work I've ever done. You get those three right, and we're on our way. We can make that work. That's magic three.
And you can hear
Me,
that.
that's just me talking now. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just going to give you my experience. Okay.
Well, you can hear that in those records though, because it really, what you hear mostly are you, Steve, and Lonnie. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of synthesizer parts, but the you know, the nucleus of that sound is the three of you guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, the two main people in the Steve Miller Band for me, number one was Lonnie. Lonnie wrote Jungle Love too, so he put that together.
Yeah.
That's a true story. Him and his
Another great use of the China too in that song.
And the other bass player was Gerald Johnson, and Gerald literally wrote the Joker. I mean that bass line with Steve when they did that. Yeah. And we spent a lot of time on the road. When Lonnie and Steve would have sometimes a little falling out, Gerald came in and it went back and forth. Then we went on and we cut Abracadabra together with Gerald and me and Steve. And a lot of that material came out of my first home studio in Sherman Oaks here in California. And I had been doing a lot of work. And I told Steve, I got a lot of stuff here. You want to hear it? And it became about 80% of the Abracadabra album. And I did my homework on that one with Steve, and I got production credits because I was really paying attention to where Europe was at the time. I was going, something's going on here. They seem to be moving to this one particular area of tempo, not a specific tempo, but the area of tempo. They're moving. I'm watching this and I'm going, if we cut this right there, and in doing so, my discussions with Gerald were very basic. I mean, Gerald told me one night, and I agree with him. He said, you know, if the car ain't got no engine, the car ain't going nowhere. And I said, yeah, that pretty much covers it all. No engine, you know, go nowhere. And it's true. And then Gerald, his words were like, I said, yeah, that's golden. You're right, man. That's correct.
And when you were looking at a certain tempo, you were thinking like for dance, because for dance and clubs.
I was watching. Yes. I was watching. I'm always, you know, look, what I did from a very early age is I always reverse engineered everything that I heard, and I drove people crazy with it. That's how I have to go off and be alone, because I had to know, especially, and I've been playing piano since I've been 12, but not that stuff. Just to understand how the orchestra
and to compose.
Yes, that's all I wanted. And I said, okay, I love this bridge. What's it doing and why? And what are the substitute chord changes and why is the bass? And I explored that. And I carried that into my drumming. So I go, counterpoint, counterpoint. Why is it working? Balance the other side of the measure. So I use it. And the same thing happened with Abracadabra. It was the one song we didn't cut as a trio. We cut it as a quartet, and Byron Allwood, the guy that did our synth work, I said, Byron, just play this and don't play anything else. Tie your other hand behind your back and just play this for 4 minutes, okay? Nothing else. I said, as a drummer, see this hand? I have to go like this and do nothing else for a while.
Right, exactly.
So be me for a while. Let me show you what it feels like.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
And he did, and that was the track.
That was a big record. And just for all the gearheads like myself out there, same drum setup. We're using the snare drum, by the way, on the Fly Like an Eagle. Was that Gretsch that you showed me? No. Oh. Yeah, I didn't want to forget to talk about that.
Wait, I got it for you. This is Rockin' Me and Fly Like an Eagle.
Right. Roger's done.
And wait a minute, where's the key? Let's find the key. Rogers.
Yep.
Dynasonic. And where'd it go? No, this is the Rogers.
Yeah, the Gretsch has
the key. But there's you got it?
Look at that. Yeah, look at that.
This is the one that was on Eagle and Keep on Rocking Me and all that
Book
stuff
of Dreams
came out of that time. And then the other one that you wanted to know was where the key is. This is the original Gretsch from the Moondance stuff with Van Morrison. And let's find the key. There's the key.
There it is.
You know it's a Gretsch because
Yeah,
they don't do
snapping
this
key
anymore,
holder.
right?
Yeah.
I showed this to John Good. I said, hey, John, what happened? My key.
I get a couple of those drums. I love them.
But
Great drums. Brass shell. Yep.
yeah, so it's, and I have to say the people at Zildjian have been just great, and then John came along with DW, and I'm on board with them, but not much of that happened prior to that with all those records. I was, I've always kind of been somewhat the guy under the radar. I don't know how that happened. I assumed, hey, if you do some really good work and it's kind of, out there making some noise, maybe, somebody will come to you. But I was wrong. So leave that one alone. I was.
Yeah,
really
no,
wrong.
I know. I was happy to finally make contact with you. I think 30 something years ago is when I tracked you down. You were still in Sherman Oaks at the time, and I think you were just recording Bruce's record, Lucky Town, and I think that, or maybe just before that, that was like our initial contact, and we stayed in touch, and it all happened eventually. But before we get to Bruce,
Go.
because we segue to the Eddie Money stuff, which kind of came around the same time as the Steve Miller stuff, or just after. And
Yeah, okay. As I
big
said
records.
before in the beginning, how everything just, did
Yep.
that. It didn't just become a chapter. It was just all, more like, a cake batter of just
yeah.
activity, and everybody was moving all over the place, and that's still what happened. But the
Well,
Eddie
I
Money
was just
stuff-
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
make an quick observation.
Go.
And I noticed this a long time ago, and I think it's really cool that the intro, well, the drum fill that you play and Two Tickets to Paradise, that incredible break at the beginning of the tune,
Yeah.
it's sort of a loose derivative of the second big fill in Swingtown. Do you know?
Yes.
Do you know? And I always love, and I pointed that out to other drummers, and I've said it's Gary Mallaber, and not that you're copying it, but it's like it's poetic license because you wrote these beats and these fills, so you kind of took a similar idea and even made it cooler in Two Tickets to Paradise. That
Yeah, the Eddie Money story is unto itself something very, very different because, again, I could spend an hour on this, and let me try to edit it down because, we just lost Eddie back in September, and I knew that was happening way before it happened because the family, Eddie lived 6 miles away from me up here in Agora. And I go back to those earliest years with Eddie. I'm going to try to encapsulate this. I could go on for an hour, I won't. But really what happened there was, once again, it was my wonderful producer and engineer, Bruce Botnick. He produced The Doors. And I started working with Bruce. I worked with Bruce, with Kenny Loggins, and we did the opening theme for Caddyshack, I'm All Right stuff. And I always got the best work with Botnick. He just would talk about it, and we discuss it. There was no, and then there I go again. I'm working with this engineer. His name is Andy Johns, and that was the guy that was responsible for that. That rock band from England. You know those guys?
I know about those. Yeah, I know about
the Zeppelin,
those
those Zepp guys.
Yeah.
And there
He's
I
done
am
some good
working
work.
with Andy and his engineer. And it was, to be fair, it was, Glyn Johns and Andy Johns were, and Jeff Emmerich and Chris Kimsey. They were some of the biggest engineers that came out of England. And I worked with them all. And I was like,
wow.
I said, Andy, I said, okay, here we go. And, those were the era, that was the era where Eddie was becoming Eddie, from Eddie Mahoney to Eddie Money. And no, he was not a cop. He was going to train to be one, but he went on to put his band together, and then they were working up in Berkeley. Okay. And I'm really editing. And all of a sudden we get a call, and because I knew Bill Graham from that era, and Bill was managing Eddie. And it was like, we want the Steve Miller Band rhythm section. Well, there wasn't just a rhythm section. It was just a trio. It was just me and Lonnie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he said, yeah. I said, okay, here we go. And so Lonnie came down and we started working with Eddie, rehearsing a little bit, and Botic was making the calls. And I remember the most strategic point in working with Eddie, especially I did the first 5 albums with him, and the first 3 and a little more on 4 and a little more on 5. But the launching records, I remember telling Bruce, I pulled him aside one night, him and Andy, and I said, after listening to Eddie sing, I said, look, this guy, he's got R&B in him.
Mm-hmm.
He's a soulful, there's something going on with this guy. He's not just cranking, he's feeling his words and his, I said, would you mind if I approach this record? And I through the portal of R&B first, and then through rock and roll. Can I go the other way with it? Can I take an R&B approach, then apply the rock and roll to it, but with R&B in mind? He said, okay, yeah, go ahead. I said, it's just something that I image, because Eddie's got this quality that I heard in him. I said, he's just got something else going on here. So let's approach this a different way. And that's how I approached that record. And we knocked out, Baby Hold On to Me and 2 Tickets to Paradise and everything like that. And that's how I would discuss it with Lonnie. I'd say, think R&B first, then go to rock and roll. R&B first, go to rock and roll. Instead of rock and roll, then R&B. Go the other way with it. Just image it a little bit differently so that it provides a different outcome.
Yeah, no, those are, and I think I'm in love too. I mean, another huge single. What a song. And
I had Andy Johns engineering it, and at that point I was like going, oh, I don't have anything to worry about. Andy's going to be engineering my drum kit. And him and Andy would, at the end of the night, Eddie would look at Andy and go, come on, Andy, come on. Give me the big beat, man, the big beat. Every day I want the big beat, and now both of my guys are not with us anymore. And I miss them horribly.
Yeah, giants, absolute giants.
Yeah.
But how great that you work with these guys, Gary. I mean, like, man. And that's the guys we've talked about, it's the tip of the iceberg too. Let's talk about, so I guess maybe just fast forward a little bit to talking about Bruce working on Ghost of Tom Joad and Lucky Town
that kind of came out of left field in the early 90s with I respect Chuck Plotkin, and I worked with Toby Scott, and they were from a studio in Hollywood called Clover. And I knew them back in the 70s when everybody was just on fire, crazed. And we did some work in there with Steve Cropper, and it was pretty cool. And everybody then went their separate ways, as we do.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing a showcase for somebody at the China Club in Hollywood one night, and at the end of the night, it came out pretty good. At the end of the night, I see Chuck Plotkin at the end of the kind of in the audience, and he's looking at me, and he's kind of smiling and waving, and I had already known that Bruce was in town, and they were cutting what was Human Touch, and they finished it as a session record. I said, oh, okay, great. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing Chuck over there, and he's smiling, and I'm going, oh, what's going on? And I look at Chuck, and I'm going, are you here for a reason? He goes, yes. Yes, I am. What's going on? He goes, well, Mr. Springsteen, being as prolific as that man is, man, is he good. He's got a whole nother album written. And I was like, okay. Really? Well, okay. In 2 weeks, I want you at the record plant, Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Bring your own drums. Okay. No delay. Bring your own drums.
Bring your own drums.
And I did. So I got prepared. And I said, okay, I'm already in shape pretty good, but I've been coaching hockey and playing hockey for a long time because that's what we did in Buffalo, New York. We skated on the streets, and I don't know how I'm still here, but it was deadly. We
Yeah.
shouldn't. Yeah, it was totally. Let's not go there. Let's not talk about it. So I hit the ice 2 weeks prior to that, and I said, I'm going to do some workout, really, because I know Bruce can do a 4-hour concert and still do another hour. And I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be on. I'm not letting this one go by. Are you kidding me? So record
Wow.
plant, yeah. And there we were, and Toby Scott was engineering, and it was really Toby and Chuck that really brought me in. I
Mhm.
credit them. They brought me in, and then Bruce knew my discography already. And they brought me in, and we started on a Monday morning, and Bruce's people had booked 3 weeks, 3 5-day weeks. We started on a Monday morning, and Wednesday night at midnight we were done. 11
Are you
songs.
kidding?
No,
Wow.
no. I just said I'm going to slug until he's not going to see me panting at all. So the first day we did 3, the next day we did 4, and wrapped it up. And
Wow.
we came back Thursday, and I think we redid one of them, and that became the album Lucky Town. And they're playing the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And I
Oh
was
yeah.
just so, I was going, how does all this happen? As I said before in the beginning of this, I said, look, I just want to be in one band, and just make a run at this. And I'm serious. That's all I
Yeah.
wanted to do, was just, I didn't get that one band, but I got 20.
Yeah.
And,
It worked out
and
pretty
wound
well,
up
I'd say.
with that guy that knew how to sing and write. My God, I'm going, okay, pinch. I'm going, how did this work? What? And then it went on for a bunch more years. We did the Ghost of Tom Joad, which was
Right.
delightful. And then I worked on with Patty, his wife, on her record called Rumble Doll. And I think there was a little scuffle between him and the E Street guys. And I didn't want to get involved in that. I wasn't. And
Yeah.
whatever it was something that had nothing to do with me.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. You were hired to come in and
Come in
yeah.
and knock it
Yeah.
out. And once again, there was no click track. There's none of that stuff. It was Bruce's shadow guitars that were in place in a vocal. So see, because I just need to know how much amperage I'm going to give my drumming and how much velocity that is wanted to. And Toby engineered, and Bob Clearmountain mixed it.
Man.
So not bad company with
Pretty good.
something like that. Yeah. But once again, my read on it had to be, look, how much force, how much amperage am I putting in here?
Mhm.
And and once again, I asked Bruce, I said, can I put a couple fills in before the downbeat? He goes, yeah, go ahead. He was wonderful. I mean, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, dude. Yeah, yeah. We come back, and I'm sitting next to him, and Stu, he goes, okay, what do you think? I go, you okay with those fills? He goes, well, they connected two 24-track machines together. So, we didn't have a full Pro Tools set up and all that. So 2 24s in sync. So they would just unplug 8 tracks, unplug, plug them in, run again, unplug, plug them in. So you could do a playlist of 3 takes.
Yeah.
And
That's how you did it.
pick and choose because you had 2 24s in sync. So, okay, then you could pick and choose. Okay, let's do that and take that. So what do you think of that? Yeah. Good. Okay.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, then I went home and I was like, what just happened? Is that real?
3 days. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, all right, let's keep going. And here I am, and I'm still going. I've got 4 original projects on the griddle right now, and I'm loving this. I'm like going, oh my God. So I'm involved in 41 compositions right now, and
Yeah.
it's thrilling. It's just like, okay, the industry has completely changed, and I don't want to talk about that because we're going to get into some.
Yeah. But talk about some of these
What
things you're doing though,
happened?
because yeah, talk about some of these things because you've been working, you've had a home studio for as long as I can remember.
Since '77. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
I work with some of the best engineers in the world. And I work with Mick Guzowski, and Mick Guzowski's mixed so many hits, and Botnick worked with the Doors. And when some of that the early 8-track Tiak Gas came out, I said, well, that looks interesting, because you could never get to the gear. The
yeah,
gear was always somewhat 15 rungs up on the ladder in order to get to it. You had to, beg and become an artist, or how do I get to that gear? We need the gear. Here, bring it down. Now we don't even want to talk about it. Now it's like ridiculous. But then
yeah,
I said, okay, I'm going to go for that. Let's see what happens. Miller liked that. And he goes, yeah, experiment on that machine. So Mick Guzowski at the time came up out of Rochester, New York, and came out here in LA, and he's just mixes constantly, everything. I said, Mick, can you help me set this up? What do you think? He goes, yeah, it'll work. I said, well, most of the people are calling the stuff toys. I said, I don't think it's a toy. That was the machine that Abracadabra material came out of. My studio.
oh, okay,
That same machine, 80% of the material that went on Abracadabra came off that machine.
wow,
Wasn't a toy.
was not a toy.
No, it
No,
wasn't a
it's
toy.
not
No,
in the right hands. It's
he gave me a couple rules to abide by. He goes, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, and please don't distort. I'll show you how not to distort. I said, thank you. Okay.
wow. And so now, like it's gotten so crazy between what's going on with the pandemic and just the business and all that crazy stuff. But you're as busy as ever, just with people needing your drums on tracks. And
Yeah.
every time I talk to you, you're telling me you've got you just finished 3 CDs and
Band from England just sent me their entire, all of their, the Pro Tools stems
yeah,
and everything. So they want me to put drums on their whole record. So that's one of the next projects. But everything else is going to be original composition. And finally, I'm being a good boy now. I'm going to do my homework. My website was horribly disregarded by me for the last 15 years.
well,
So I got a girl up in my hometown, and I said, Robin, I am really missing a lot of stuff. She goes, yeah, I think it's time we brought that thing up. So we are in the process of a total redo, remodel, and I'm going to list everything, put it all out there, because there's so much that I was part of, with all the music, a lot of stuff that people don't even know about. I mean, I wound up working on an album called Kiko with Los Lobos, which was I love them.
yeah, me too. Yeah.
One song called Wake Up Dolores, which they've been playing. It's one of their main tunes now that they played. And we just made it up on the spot with David Hidalgo and Mitchell Froome and Chad Blake were on board with that one. And I was like, wow, I love those guys.
Yeah, yeah, great band.
Great.
Yeah. I know there's so much, and we're at the 90-minute mark, and
okay.
But I was just going to say we'll have to do another one. If I could twist your arm to do another one of these, and we'll cover a bunch of other things we didn't get to this time. Any
questions from anybody? I'd rather be accurate and tell everybody exactly the story of what happened, because some of it's astounding. They don't realize really what took place, and how something was achieved. I mean, I could talk forever on achieving sounds and how I would purposely, I was trying years ago to make a piccolo snare drum sound like a coffee can, but it was not accepted. It was like, no, that doesn't sound like a snare drum.
Right.
So I said, well, now a lot of the rap guys and a lot of the live players make their snare drum sound like a popping coffee can. Whoa, that thing is tight. and going. And I wanted to do that years ago, you know. So.
But that was at a time, like you say, when, you know, there was a snare sound. It was not that sound. It was a
Yeah, but I got away with the
fatter.
China, huh?
Yeah, you got away big time with the
That
China.
one snuck on. Oh, and the other one on Fly Like an Eagle. I had to make sure that that ride cymbal was heard, so that's why I pushed and pulled those microphones. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I want that bell cymbal to be heard. We're not doing that. It's going to be heard."
Oh,
And that's how it happened.
And is there another cymbal, another crash cymbal that's on Fly Like an Eagle besides the China that's just like a.
Yes. The other one, I used it on Take the Money one, and I call that my protractor.
Yes. Okay.
It's half a cymbal.
Yes.
It's in a warehouse. It's in my other anvil case, and I'll grab it for you and let you see it. What I had to do once is, you know, the protractor, of course, for the early days of when we actually used to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of computer. Okay. So the whole cymbal was just about, and it was going to be a loss. So I cut the sides of it with tin snips, and I brought it in, and it was a protractor with the bell, and I put it up there. I said, well, if it's going to continue to crack, it will. And that became the one on Take the Money Run.
Yeah.
And it was short. It was a very short, and it would just stop because it couldn't ring.
Well, you know, all the companies are making a cymbal like that now.
Yeah, I want a royalty.
You should get one.
I asked, no, you know what? I asked, I said, look, you know, really, guys, I don't think a cymbal has to be round. You could put look what I do to my cymbals because I'm trying to salvage them. So I cut it out and I drill holes in them, and you know, now Zildjian's got the one with the holes and the ovals in them, and I'm going, but I did that out of necessity.
That's the sound. Exactly. That's the sound there. That's the sound you had back then. It's short, trashy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And making my engineer.
And before we sign off,
he would just hated. He was just saying, you're gonna get yours, sir. You watch. We're gonna change these sounds up.
Man, what great sounds though. I mean, it revolutionized so much at a time when there was nothing like that. You know, it's.
Yeah, I know. You know, and a lot of that was, it was some, you know, we basically engineered that record, and we were moving mics around. I was breaking some rules and saying well, look, if I wanted to do that, let's make it sound like what we're hearing, and whether or not, I don't care where the mic is, we'll make it, you know, that, you know, we just take that for granted today now. It's what Geoff Emerick did with the Beatles. He wasn't even allowed to move a microphone.
Right.
Ever read his story? And you're going,
no.
Oh, you got to read his story. You go, what? You're going, here's the band that's completely changing the entire world of music, and they literally were not allowed to do certain things.
Because Abbey Road, the people at Abbey Road wouldn't.
Yeah, and you're reading this stuff, and you're going, what? Are you serious? Yeah, you're not believing.
I've heard the stories of the guys wearing like white lab coats and, you know.
Oh yeah. White lab coat. They couldn't move the microphone, and so Emerick just said, well, I'll work when no one's there, and then he just disrupted the room and did all that. I'm going, my hero.
It's kind of like what you do. Yeah.
We should hang out together.
I was going to say.
I mean, you're working with a band that's changing the whole world. You've got to be kidding me that they were that restrictive.
I know.
On those guys, you know, and they would even shut down the commissary. What? I mean, what? You mean they couldn't get a little spot of tea? Give them a break, will you? They're just making you some money.
Oh man!
Oh, God. All right,
Gary, thank you so much for doing this. This is great, man. We should probably wrap it, but I just want to thank you for doing this. I know everybody watching. We got lots and lots of people watching, and I know they're all thankful. And if you just joined, you can watch the recording of this. Obviously, if you didn't catch the whole thing live, you can rewind it and watch it. And Gary Mallaber is one of my absolute favorite drummers. I'll say it again. I've been saying it for a long time. And this has been such a treat to talk to you today about things that I thought I knew almost everything, but I've learned so much today just personally about your history and man, it's just, you've been such an inspiration to me. And by the looks of it, hundreds of other people have said the same thing.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Hey, listen, to all the men and ladies in all the bands, just keep going, make it real. Just try to preserve the reality of that music. That's so important because I really feel it's going to take over. Just make that stuff real.
That's great.
Okay.
All right. Well, hang tight for 1 second, Gary. I'm going to end the
Okay.
stream, but then we'll say goodbye in the room by ourselves. So hang on one second. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon. Big hand for Gary Mallaber.